Looking around, I finally see I think I need a change. The rat race, I wanna flee, my world I'll rearrange. I'm getting back to the roots of how it's meant to be. Growing gardens, picking fruit, racing livestock, living free. It's a modern homestead. Build a modern homestead.
Hello and welcome to the Modern Homesteading Podcast. Glad you're joining us today. Today we're going to talk about, well, we were going to call it, has your homesteading been naughty or nice for this Christmas? But what we're really going to talk about is ethical homesteading versus unethical homesteading. We're going to look into the three ethics of permaculture, which is earth care, people care, and fair share. And we're just going to talk about what that is, how it looks practically, the practice of it, what might look like your homestead might look like if you're not practicing ethical homesteading versus, an ethical form of homesteading. How you doing, Rachel?
I'm doing pretty good. I think that, like for me with this subject, it's not just about if we are, if we aren't, but ways to improve too. Yeah, I think we're always kind of improving on the subject and trying to strive to be a little bit more ethical. That's
true. And what I thought was ethical homesteading, 7 or 8 years ago is different now. Like I've learned things. I've learned about some things that were bad that maybe I was doing, or I've just grown as a person, and everybody's at a different stage in their life and what they know. So that is going to look different, for you now that it will for 10 years from now, maybe. So yeah, we'll jump into a little bit of that. Also, what'd you do on your homestead this week? Anything new?
Well, I've rested and recovered from the last 2 weekends of butchering things, and but I did. We went on a hike yesterday and checked trees at our property, and some deer plowed through my fence, so I have a fence to fix. And so far, I only saw one tree that got some deer damage that they ate some tops off of, but and then made some summer sausage.
Yes. Like the summer sausage, do you?
Yeah, with venison. Well, we made it. I had some pork from Mangalitsa pork from a friend's farm, and then we had the venison. So yeah, makes a nice little mix.
I actually like summer sausage better than jerky myself, but a lot of people are really into the jerky. Yeah.
My husband loves the jerky, but I like the summer sausage. Yeah. Yep.
Yeah.
What about you?
Oh, the greenhouse stuff. I've got that on autopilot. I mean, that thing is just, I'm not even going out there, but, I'll pop in for like a minute, throw some fish food in the water, because the aquaponic system's in there, and keep the fish fed. But other than that, I haven't been going in there to do any work for every 3 or 4 days. I'll go in there and pick a few things or whatever. It's just doing its thing. And now I do have some things in pots that I have to water. The lettuce I have growing in pots, but I just go in there about every 3 days and drowned it real good, and then come back 3 days later. And I did actually harvest some of that and make a nice salad the other day, which was real nice. I was like, look at that. I got my first big old salad out of the greenhouse. Yummy. In December. I love it.
Yeah, I love that.
Also, I made the change in my, I got that Berkey filtration system, and I made the change from Berkey filters. I was due for some new filters. And I switched over to the Pro 1 filters. I think they used to be called Pro Pure, yeah, something like that. They changed them to Pro 1. Now, Berkey has been in the news lately with some controversy. You know a little bit more about that than I do. I think they haven't officially had any tests or something.
Yeah, I don't know if they've officially, there's been some complaints on and off for years, and I know people are big proponents of Berkey.
And full disclosure, I love mine. I've always loved it.
Right,
the water just tastes better. It's obviously better than drinking it straight from the tap.
Yeah, for sure. So there's been some complaints for a while, and so I don't know if they've addressed the old complaints, and then now there has been some newer complaints, and So I don't know if they're addressing those. Hopefully they are. I think the complaints were about, I'm trying to remember the new
I think it's their claims of what it removes, because they've never had official testing.
Yeah.
But they make claims that it removes certain things, certain percentages of certain things, when there's not even any kind of official, like the testing, I think has mostly been done in-house. And there's not been any like third party.
Correct. It might be, there's more issues with the fluoride removal system than the other one, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, with Berkey, they actually have another set of filters. Yeah, it's a separate set of filters that removes fluoride. And now this is actually the main reason I switched filters. Now, I decided a long time ago, almost a year ago, that I was going to switch. Actually, you convinced me of that a long time ago, that the Pro 1 filters were actually a little bit better of a filter than Berkey.
Last I checked. I mean, I haven't.
I actually just checked right before I bought these, and it still looks like they're removing more contaminants, and they don't need the other set of filters. It removes the fluoride all in the one filter. And that right there sold it on me. They're a little cheaper. They have to be replaced a little bit more often, though.
And they're a little, did you find that they were a little slower? So when I did research on these,
I just put them in, so I don't know.
Full disclosure, when I did research for these, I was actually doing research for a medical clinic. And I had to present that information to the doctors there. And so it was pretty extensive research I did, but it was 3 years ago. And I no longer have the time to do that kind of research. And I had called companies and read white papers and gotten all sorts of information. And it wasn't that Berkey's a bad company. I like, like you said, it's better than just drinking the water out of your faucet. But I thought that ProPer, in my opinion, and it still is, was just a little bit better.
Yeah. And I think that I actually linked to an article in the show notes if you want to go read a little bit more extensive on a comparison. And even the article is really I think the article's very, they don't really favor one or the other. And in the end, they even say they're both great filters, and either way you go is great. I think they leaned a little bit more on the filter side, that the filters for Pro 1 were a little bit better, but they actually end up saying in there, if you have the actual, like I have the stainless steel system, they actually say that Berkey actually makes a little bit better actually container than the Pro 1, so, which is nice, because I actually have the Berkey, stainless steel big Berkey container, and you can actually put either filter in one. They're universal. They'll fit in either one. So I put the Pro 1 filters in there.
So when we got them at the medical clinic, one of the biggest complaints was they were slow.
Yeah.
But I think that's pretty much that way with all gravity.
Yeah, I don't really care. I keep it full all the time. And my routine is I just get up and I dump a gallon of water in it just about every morning or more. As soon as it goes down a little bit, I fill it up. We usually fill it once or twice a day. We use a lot of water out of it. A lot of water.
Well, I mean, you do usually. It's when you start filtering water, or when you start toting water, like for camping and stuff like that, you realize just how much you use. I mean, for tea, for cooking.
Just drinking. I mean, I just drink a lot of water, so make coffee with it. I mean, I use it for everything. So yeah, we use it a lot. And I mean, I've owned my Berkey system for a few years, and I can honestly say it was one of the best investments I've ever made as a homesteader. I just felt like of all and they are expensive, they cost a lot of money. But yeah, it's never been money I've regretted spending. But that being said, I did change over to the Pro 1 filters because I think they are just a hair better. And there is, I think,
and you are on city water, right?
Yes. So I definitely have to have the fluoride filters on the Berkey system. So that was 4 filters I'd have to buy. I'd have to buy the 2 charcoal filters, the Berkey filters, and then I'd have to buy the 2 fluoride filters that screw underneath of it every time I change filters. With these Pro 1 filters, it's just 2 filters. So
so we are not, but one of the things that we found for our area, and this is again back to my previous job, was that our area, even the well water, has quite a few contaminants because we were a farm. Because we were a farm area, and which was eye opening because a lot of people think that if you have well water, you don't necessarily.
Oh yeah, there can be a lot of problems. Yeah. Yeah.
So I just kind of have become a proponent of filtering your water no matter where.
No matter what. Yeah.
No matter what. It's just, it's one thing that we can do. Speaking of, the ethics and stuff like that. It's one thing what you can do that's really not hugely time concerning and super simple to do, is just filter our water to make our cells healthier.
Yeah, I think so too. And I think I actually find maybe we don't waste as much water either because we're wanting to use good water. Therefore, these things, I mean, it only holds a couple gallons. I think it holds 3 gallons or something, whatever it is. So you're trying to kind of use that. And, you don't just flip the faucet on and let it run. You're actually getting it out of there, and you got to replace that water in there and wait for it to drain through. So I actually find we're more mindful of like using the water for cooking and drinking, and we don't just let the faucet run unnecessarily a lot too. So, I mean, we think about that. We just think about how much water we're using.
Yeah, I think we started doing that too. I mean, with us camping, we think about that with garbage and with our water, because where we camp is very rustic. We don't camp at like a campground. And man, everything we haul in, we have to haul back out.
Yep.
And it does get your brain thinking.
It makes you think about it.
Yeah, there's a lot of waste here that I have to haul out, or that's a lot of water. So you don't run it as often unless you have to.
Right. Yep. Well, on that, we'll kind of jump into our topic here, ethical homesteading versus unethical homesteading, or being naughty or nice. We got to put that Christmas twist on. I mean, we're releasing this the week of Christmas, so, we kind of have to I feel like we had to throw a little Christmas twist on it there. So I kind of wanted to define what I feel like ethical homesteading and unethical homesteading is. You could tell me if you agree with this or not, or you want to add anything to it. I think of ethical homesteading is a way that you're taking responsibility for the earth. You're taking responsibility for other people, and you're giving thought to the future. As an ethical homesteader, I just feel like when if you're doing it in an ethical way, those things come to your mind. Would you add anything to that, or think that it's appropriate? Or
I think I would agree. And I also, like we said before, I also think it's a moving target. As we grow, our ideas on that will grow and change, and that's okay.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Knowledge changes a lot of it. Like I've learned things now that I did for years. I'm like, okay, there's a problem with that. We'll get into maybe some of that here in a few minutes. But now on unethical homesteading, it's kind of the opposite. You're doing it in a way that only gives thoughts to your own immediate desire, with no thought for what kind of damage you're causing to the earth, how it affects others, no concern for what's going to be available in the future for your kids, your grandkids, future generations, whatever. That, in my mind, is unethical homesteading. And there is some of that goes on for sure.
Yeah. For sure.
I'll tell you, I think I grew up in that kind of a homestead, and it wasn't intentional, I don't think. But I just think that we didn't pay a lot of attention to that. My dad, when we dumped tons of chemicals on the driveway and sidewalks and kill the weeds, he fed them grain that was no doubt soaked. And our animals grain was soaked in whatever kind of, glyphosate or whatever, feeding it to them.
I would say that's my in-laws, where I learned homesteading from, definitely did that as well. And I don't think it was because it wasn't purposeful for them. They were children of the Depression.
Yeah.
And so they came out of the hard work and the drudgery of having a farm and homesteading to all these new modern improvements, which they thought were good. And now we've found.
And to be honest, you just did it like your neighbors did it too. I mean, everybody was doing it. And like we raised our animals in not the best living conditions. I mean, the hog lot looked like what you'd think a hog lot might look like a really no grass, pure mud, small, not enough room for them to really have any kind of quality of life, really. Things weren't super clean all the time. I mean, it was just the way everybody was doing it, back then. Most people, I mean, in our area, it seemed like everybody did it that way. You just kind of did it like they did it. It just wasn't, it didn't give thought to these things. And I would say it was unethical, even if it was unintentional.
Yep.
For sure.
And now we're realizing that maybe those good intentions weren't exactly the right way, and we're trying to correct that. And
because the bigger concern was feeding your family.
Yep.
And again, it was your own immediate needs. It's like I got this much property, we have this much money, have this kind of resources. We got to feed this family. And you made it happen. And I get that. I understand that. And you wanted to do it with as little input as possible, and you make it happen. They didn't understand things. There wasn't, I just think we have a bigger understanding of the impact these things have, than what we had back then, what people had back then. And some of it, I don't know. I mean, I think like you almost had to know some things were just wrong, like some living conditions for animals or whatever, and you just ignored it because it was accepted. It was okay. And now we have a different thought about that. A lot of people think differently about that. It's not regarded as okay, in some cases now. So, yeah.
And
I mean,
now we're realizing some of the more natural ways actually can be just as thrifty or more thrifty.
Yeah. And yeah, better long-term for sure. I often think about it like this, it's like you can invest money. It might cost you more to invest in now to do it the right way.
Yeah.
But if you have to do it the wrong way year after year after year, now what I'm thinking about is like farming, for example. Yeah. Like it might be a big expense to feed your soil, get your soil to be a living soil early on. It might be a big investment, and it might cost you a lot of money and time and work to get it in that shape. But year after year after year of chemicals after chemicals after chemical dumping on this property to try to keep crops growing in dead soil, long term will cost you more. And it'll cost the planet a lot more.
And I think we're seeing that now.
Yeah.
And the hard part is turning that ship around.
Right.
We're turning the Titanic around here.
For sure. Yeah. Well, I think we should start by really defining the 3 ethics of permaculture, telling what they are, kind of giving a slight definition of what they are, and then we can maybe jump into what that kind of looks like. The 3 ethics of permaculture are earth care, people care, and fair share. Now, the fair share one has some different names. Some people call it return of surplus to the earth and people. Some people just call it future care, but the original way it was worded was fair share. So we'll kind of look at those. Earth care, it really includes all living and non-living things, such as the animals, the plants, trees, the land, the water, the air, all the living and non-living systems are interconnected and interdependent. And when one is affected, it's all affected. So, when you think about earth care, it's like if you let any part of that not be cared for or really be destroyed, it affects it all because they're all tied together. If you take out the rainforests, for example, it affects the whole world. Right. If you pollute the oceans, it affects everybody. I mean, these things are all connected. So we have to care for the earth that we have here. Another one is people care. And now you and I have talked a lot about this, but that begins with self-care, with caring for ourselves. I think the first time I heard it referred this way was by Ben Falk. He said, zone 00. Your own care for yourself, and it's where it begins, because you can't take care of others unless you take care of yourself first. It's kind of like the mask on the airplane thing, right? You always put your mask on before you help somebody else put theirs on, because if you pass out, you can't help them put theirs on, right? So, it's take care of yourself first. But then we extend that to the next closest circle of people in our lives, our families, our neighbors, our local communities, and then the greater community, and then ultimately all people, all of humanity. And I think people care is a very important aspect of homesteading. I just, even if you're not thinking of it on the all of humanity scale, I think we all think about our neighbors, and we can talk a little bit about what that kind of looks like, the people care part. And then finally, fair share, or return of surplus to the earth, or people, or future care rather. And to put this one really simply, because you can get really into the weeds on this, if we take only our fair share, then there's enough for everybody. And there will continue to be enough in the future also. And this is also about regenerative practices, not just taking a little so that little lasts a long time. It's actually making it so it regenerates itself and it continues to be there forever. Right. Or even more so, than what we have now. Giving back more than we take, which I really like that. Yeah.
Improving on
yes.
instead of just that sustainable of it being the same. It's improving on it.
Yeah. Yeah. Now, that all sounds good from the airplane view. Okay. You're looking at it from like, okay, but what does that look like in a practical sense? What does an unethical homestead look like and an ethical homestead look like? A homesteader that doesn't care about, say, earth care. What does that look like? I think we see a lot of that. We see people, they might use chemicals just to get a bigger yield.
Yeah.
Without any regard to the damage of the soil life or the water or the air pollution. That's a big one with me.
Yeah. Or like the bug population.
Yeah. There you go. The life.
That's a big one for me, is we're killing bugs. And for me too, I mean, like I said, we come full circle with this. We have used that before, and now we realize that chemical not just killed that bug, but created this domino effect.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I had a farmer reach out to me. It's been a couple of years ago, I think. And he loved the podcast. I love the podcast, but I feel like you're kind of hard on farmers, traditional farmers. And I'm like, and I was pretty blunt with him. I said, well, I'm not necessarily going to apologize for the truth. And the truth is the chemicals that are put down are causing a lot of problem. And he said, well, I don't want to do it, but we're looking for ways to do this. And I feel like maybe you're being kind of hard on people who want out, but they can't get out. And I'm like, no, you're not the problem.
Right.
You want out, you're looking, and it's going to be a hard battle. You're going to have to do it slowly. You're going to have to you got to feed your family too. You got to make a living. You can't lose your property. It's a slow process. It's a slow transition. Because you want to do it and you're taking steps to do it, that's great. I don't think you're the problem. You're gonna get that corrected at some point. It's the people who think it's fine, that think, oh, you could drink that stuff and it wouldn't hurt you.
Right.
Those are the problem. You know what I mean? The people that don't care if they're spraying it on a windy day and it's blowing all over your property. Those are the problem. And there's plenty of those out there. So I'm not being hard on farmers. There's a lot of it they don't know, or they just can't change right away quickly. And I understand that. And like you said, it's like turning the Titanic. You got to have a lot of time. Yep. Takes a lot of room. And I've heard Joel Salatin talk about that a lot. He's a farmer we both respect. And I've heard him say that to farmers when they ask him, well, what do I do as a conventional farmer? He says, you do it slowly. That's what you do.
Mm-hmm.
And 1 acre at a time. Yeah. And as a homesteader, it's the same.
That maybe a practice we were using wasn't the best practice, so we hit the reverse button and
change one thing today. And if you can't change nothing else this year, change something else next year, and slowly do it if that's what it takes. I mean, we can just take steps towards that. I mean, of course, we're getting on the other what a ethical homesteader looks like, but this is just one aspect of it. What I think when I think of what this looks like practically as an unethical homesteader, it's not having any regard to what you're putting into the earth, on the earth, and where it's going to go, what kind of damage it's going to do, and the problem it is. And I don't hate you if you're using this stuff. I just want you to understand so you will make the right decision, because maybe you just don't understand, yet.
Right. Yeah. I mean, and maybe you were raised kind of like how you were talking with your family using some of those, and I was raised with using some of those, and I
mean, I grew up when we changed the oils in cars, we took the pan out there and dumped it on the driveway where the weeds were to kill the weeds. Okay. Right. You want to talk about bad for the environment, bad for your own water on your property. I mean, horrible. We do things like that, and I didn't know any different when I became an adult. That's just where the old motor oil goes. It took me a while to really understand the potential damage of that, things like that, I mean, you just gotta learn and grow and kind of understand. And maybe I was lacking a little common sense.
And we just have to be open to learning too, and open to realizing that a practice maybe wasn't the best practice. And
yeah. For sure. You might also, as an unethical homesteader, use resources in abundance that support non-regenerative practices. What I had in mind here when I thought about that was peat moss. because
okay.
I was,
I was
always
wondering.
somebody who used a lot of peat moss.
I did
And
too.
as I learned a lot about the peat bogs and the problems that is, and how it's not regenerative at all. I mean, it is
Right.
over thousands of years, but it's not
Right.
quickly regenerative. And we're definitely destroying those peat bogs faster than they're being created. And those are an important part of the planet. When I was talking about food forests earlier, peat bogs are like that. We need the peat bogs,
Yes.
and we're using a lot of peat moss. And we did an episode, and I think, wow, a lot of people like peat moss because it helps with their soil, and you can, especially when you're doing like seed starting and things like that. Well, we did an episode on leaf mold
Yeah.
here
we
a while
can
back,
use
and you know what,
mold.
leaf mold is actually a great alternative to peat moss. It really is.
It's free.
And it's free and something you can do right there on your own property. So, I mean, I'm saying there's alternatives to that. And I used peat moss for years,
Yeah,
and I
so
wouldn't
did
even say I still don't ever use it. I would use it without, it's just, are you using it in abundance without any thought to the practice and what it's supporting, it's just things like that, I mean, it just an abundance, or maybe you're supporting things. This will be more in the people care too, but we'll talk about that again in a minute, because there is using resources that are go against people care also. But yeah, as far as just using resources.
Well, and even using, I mean, you can use lots of water too when.
Yeah.
Yeah. The overuse of water. When we're having a lot of places out west dry up. We're in the Midwest and we don't have as much of that issue, although I had drought this year. But, we can talk about that in a minute, but there's ways to be mindful of how much water you use and use less of it.
For sure.
But just using it with complete disregard which
permaculture has some great answers for that. I mean, some great, some ways to really preserve that water and make the best use of it, for sure. And also, an unethical homesteader might raise animals in a way that causes poor health to the animals or poor living conditions to the animals. I mean, I talked about that. It's the way I grew up. We didn't think about it, and I just think that's unethical now. I used to not give a thought to it. Now I look at the way I raise an animal and I go, I want that animal to have the best life it can have,
Yeah, I didn't used to think about it either. And now after volunteering at a ranch and helping at friends' farms that have regenerative farms, I realize just how, the things that I learned. Well, I used to live across the street at one point from a pig farm. And it smelled so bad.
Yeah, we have a lot of chicken.
Obviously, that is not a healthy living condition for those pigs.
Yeah, we have a lot of big chicken operations, in these counties, surrounding counties and stuff. And yeah, it's horrible. I mean, you get within a few miles of those places, you start smelling them. I mean, it's horrible.
It's bad. If you've ever driven by one, you'll know.
Oh yeah, yeah. And these are just a few of the things. I mean, there's probably just an endless number of things that an unethical homesteader might. I mean, it probably goes into the kitchen, into the household, into your garage. I mean, it's just all aspects of your homestead. I mean, there's just all these things. These are just like off the top obvious things of what an unethical homesteader, might look like. And when I say unethical homesteader, if you're doing any of these things, I'm not. Like I said, it is unethical as you grow and learn, but if you don't know, you don't know, Well,
and I mean, I'm sure there's areas where both of us can grow and we're not.
Oh, I guarantee you.
By any means.
Yeah. I guarantee you there's things I'm doing that somebody else would go, that's unethical. And you're like, oh, well, teach me more about that. You tell me, okay, what's my alternatives here? And I would want to know, or want to know the degree of how bad it is, because I think there is in degrees too. There's some things that might be unethical, but it's such a minor thing that it's not going to alter the future of the earth, but but some of these things do. I think, again, putting chemicals on a field, on your garden,
right?
I mean, I think it's dangerous. I think it's dangerous to the future of this planet, the water supplies, the air. I mean, it's causing so much harm.
Well, and you and I have both had health problems, and it's our primary reason for being here right now. And I believe it's a lot of our health problems are a lot of these chemicals and stuff that we just use willy-nilly.
Yeah, I believe that too, for sure, for sure. Well, as a person who is focused on earth care, as a homesteader who really thinks about those things, our homestead might actually work to create healthy soil, right? We're going to want to just feed our soil. We're going to put, all the proper things, we want good soil. We want it to be living, we don't want to be spraying chemicals on it and killing it. We don't want to put anything on it that's going to cause damage to the water supplies or the air. That's going to kill the insects or kill the weeds. We're looking to, do things a little bit more manually, maybe, but the right way, in a more ethical way.
And the more we build that soil, the less we're going to need to use water and other resources.
The
more that soil is built, the more microbes, the more earthworms, the more everything we have in it. The plants can uptake nutrition more. So there's less we need to add.
In the long run, it will be better.
Yeah.
All the way around. It'll be better.
I mean, the earth is amazing, has the amazing ability to regenerate if we give it the opportunity.
Yep. We might have to just take some steps to help it along in the early days, because we've done so much damage that, we have to take some steps ourselves. I mean, honestly, if we just step back, it would probably turn around all to itself, but we have to feed our families. We have to care for people, right? So, I mean, we do need to be involved in it. We have to take from it, but we need to do that in a way that we're caring for the planet, caring for the earth, the soil, and the trees and the plants and the bugs and the animals. And, we need to do that.
The animals, I mean, there's no question that animals standing in their own feces or standing in mud lots, it's totally not healthy for them, for their feet, for their hooves, for viral load, bacterial load. So that's just one thing. I mean, I think one of the things we can do for that, if you have a small piece of property, I'm thinking like one of the things Joel does is with his carbonaceous diaper, so maybe you don't have a ton of property and you can't run your animals around 20 acres to keep them healthy, but you can grow in a smaller area and still do some things to promote health for them.
Yeah. Well, how about the bees? I mean, you're spraying chemicals and these bees I mean, there's a big issue with that. I mean, there's all kinds of people talking about that and studies out there about how the bees are disappearing, and a lot of it's being blamed on the chemicals and, I mean, there's a lot of issues there as well. But I also think we need to be mindful of our use of limited resources and support companies that are mindful of this as well. Like there are a lot of companies out there that care about the future, and we need to maybe find those companies and support them. Sometimes it may even cost you a little bit more, but it's worth it if you're thinking about, the future, and caring for the earth, because there are a lot of companies that, they all say that they care about it, but you can actually see a lot of them doing things to ensure the future is better than the past, and we should go out of our way to support that. Yeah.
That might be like healthier cleaners, or using less paper products, or switching to paper from styrofoam. I mean, it can be so many, the little things add up too, not just these big, huge things, and supporting some of these companies that are trying.
To
do that.
Making a healthier product for people and for the earth. And it just, they're going out of their way to, like I said, it may even not be as profitable for them to do that, but they feel like it's important and we should support them, any chance we get. So when you run across, products like that, I think it's a good idea to spend your hard-earned money to support them. I mean, I think that's something we can do as an ethical homesteader.
Yep, it is. 100%.
For sure. Well, it takes us to people care. Now, a homesteader that doesn't care about this might only think of themselves and their wants and their needs without any regard for other people. And I think that is the main problem, so they take and they never give back. In other words, it's all about them. The food I grow, I don't care about anybody else around me. They don't want to participate in community, which means they don't want to be involved in anything. They're always just thinking about their own self-sufficiency and not helping anybody else. But one thing I've discovered is that no man is an island. No person is an island, and they cannot do this on their own. So you put something in here in community, and you're talking about Joel Salatin. What was it that he says?
Well, I just said that just because you're not participating in community doesn't mean you have to be gone all the time. Joel Salatin mentions that he was able to accomplish a lot because he was home, because it enabled him to save money and get more things done. So it doesn't necessarily mean that you have to be out all the time in the community. It's just being helpful when you can, knowing it exists. I mean, we have great online communities too, where we can assist each other. So, I know we're all introverts here. I mean,
a lot of
homesteaders it's a pretty large proportion of us are quite introverted, and we enjoy being home. Plus, we have a lot to do at home.
But honestly, that doesn't have anything to do with people care. I mean, that might have to do with, involvement, but you can still care for people quietly. You don't have to make a big scene out of it, or even, be face to face with people a lot. You can give
you don't have to be
to help. You can share. Like I said, I've had my grandkids run, a bag of produce down to some neighbors before, or whatever.
Exactly.
You just share, and it doesn't even mean that you have to give away all your stuff to people. It means that you make available, you grow more than you need. You don't just throw it in the dumpster. You share it with, you can sell it. You can do things with it at an affordable, fair price. You can be fair about it. Something that gives it to you, but also gives to others. And you just take care of people, and you don't just share your stuff. You can share your skills. You can share your knowledge with people. I mean, it's what we try to do here on this podcast. We're trying to, share what little bit we know with others. We try to bring on people who know more than us to share with other people about what they know. And, it's a way of doing people care,
Yeah.
I mean, it gets into fair share also, and we'll talk about that there too. But I mean, it's also a form of people care for sure. But a homesteader who's focused on people care, they're not just thinking of themselves; they're thinking of others. They'll care for themselves and others and make decisions with others in mind. They don't want to just receive; they want to give back, and they want to share those things. So, I think that's all part of being a homesteader who is others minded. Somebody who cares about people care. So I think it's important, and it's ethical to care about other people, not just you, and not just your family, but, your neighbors. I think often about, and this is it's a minor thing. This isn't even something that's going to change the world necessarily, but I mean, I've met homesteaders whose property is so bad and so run down that it actually drops the property value of their neighbors.
Yeah.
That's a problem. That's not people care. You got to think about your neighbors as well, and if you don't have the time to take care of your place, downsize your place.
Right.
To where you got time to take care of it properly.
Well, and to be honest with you on that subject, that is actually one thing I'm doing this year here on our suburban property, because I'm out at our urban property, our rural property so much. I'm actually dropping some of what I'm doing here, because last year it was it didn't look
got
good.
Away from you a little bit.
It got away from me a little bit.
It can.
It didn't look good. And I don't want to be, I want my neighbors to like what I'm doing, and I want it to be aesthetically pleasing, and not that that's the whole purpose behind what I'm doing it, but I also don't want to be the blight of the
right.
Of my road.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, it needs to look cared for, and it needs to be cared for. And
yeah,
so,
and I mean,
I'm guilty of this and working on it myself.
Yeah. Well, I think I've been there too. I've definitely cut back on things or changed things that I knew I couldn't take care of properly. So I set it up differently to where I could, and it would still look good.
Yeah.
And not that I think I'm dropping down, the neighborhood property value or anything, but I've seen places that I have no doubt did affect the sell value of a home next to it because it looks so bad. And I just think as a person who cares about people, you can't do that, Yeah. And you want them to think highly of homesteading and maybe do their part. And they're not going to think very highly of it looking at your place if it looks like that. That's all I know.
Mine was Weedville last year, so we're working on that.
Yeah, it can happen real easy. But anyway, that's what I think. There's, again, it could be a huge list of people care, things you can consider in people care on both sides of the fence. Fair share, or again, I like to think of it as future care, because yes, there's a pie, right? Let's just say there's a pie and you all get a little piece of the pie. But the thing is, that pie can get bigger every year. It can actually grow if we're practicing in a regenerative way. If we're making things better, the pie gets bigger and bigger and bigger. So you have one pie. Yeah. You can only take so much of that, and then the pie goes away eventually. That's why we have to not just think about sustainability, but regenerative practices. Yep. So, keep increasing the size of that pie. But a homesteader that doesn't care about this doesn't care how big the pie is. They want it all. They want to take it all. All they care about is larger yields, larger profits, and success in their own life. They don't have any concern for future generations, what's going to be available for them. It's all about overconsumption and greed. And this person doesn't care who they support with their money, as long as it benefits them here and now, no matter what the cost is to others. Right. I mean, that's an unethical homesteader. And you know what? They exist. I've met them. They're here. Mm-hmm. Yeah. They're out there. A homesteader focused on fair share might, responsibly take what is needed and make the rest of it or more fairly available to others. Talked about that a minute ago with people care, but it goes into your fair share as well. They're going to financially support companies that also care about other people and what future generation and what future generations are going to have available to them. Now, to me, that's huge, because that's a huge thing nowadays with ethical purchasing, especially when you start getting to slave labor and things like that. What kind of clothing are you even purchasing? Who's making that clothing? What are they stealing from people or from the land of that area to make these things that you're buying? There's a lot to consider in how you spend your money ethically, because there's a lot of unethical practices going on around the world. There's these slave shops, where they're putting kids, 8-year-olds in there making your stuff, and working them 16 hours a day to make the thing that, I just got to have. There's a lot of that going on,
there's a lot of that going on.
And I'll be the first to admit, I don't do my homework on every single purchase I make. I don't know, and maybe that's something, I might need to look into. And there may be some changes coming into my life where I make, I say, okay, I wasn't being ethical in that way. I need to change that, because nothing speaks louder than the money you spend. You want to change something? If enough people spend their money in that way, it can change that.
Yeah.
It really can. You can speak with your wallet for sure. And it's something I think that as an ethical homesteader, you have to focus on that just a little bit. And you have to think about, okay, are they strip mining something? Or are they doing this? And it's going to affect the future of this planet.
And, in other countries, mining is a huge thing that children do. I think is it lithium that kids?
Yeah. So what are you?
And some of this stuff is like impossible to avoid. I mean, I have a cell phone.
Yeah. Absolutely.
But we can think about it as much as we can.
And chemicals there's chemicals that go in things you're purchasing that, they're the way they're harvesting those things, or the way they're making those things and using the people to have to be around that to do it. I mean, the way the labor is getting done, are you going to support that? I mean, are you unknowingly supporting that? Like I probably am on many things. I have no doubts.
Oh yeah, I'm sure.
Yeah. So, I mean, it's something to consider. It's something to try to strive to be more ethical in. And I think it can have effects for the future, the now and the future for sure.
It can.
Yeah. So, I mean, it's something we have to think about, but this person who's an unethical person, they don't care who they support with their money. Right. It's all about the now and me. That's all it is, and I want more, and I want it now, and I want to have everything I want, no matter what the cost is to others. And we cannot think like that as a people. I don't think, if we want any kind of a future for our planet or our people, we have to change that.
We don't live in the day and age where we can't not think about that anymore. I don't think.
Right.
Yeah.
But, an ethical homesteader, they want to take responsibility and on that. And they want to, make the rest, make things available for other people. We don't want to take our fair share, but we want there to be plenty for our neighbors or, the other people on the planet now and in the future. I think a lot about what is the planet going to be like for my grandchildren. I think a lot about that, and I want it to be a life that's worth living. I want them to be able to have the things that make it a great life. And I think if you're messing up the planet really bad, So it's not going to be,
Right.
it's going to cause a lot of problems in the future. And science is not going to fix those problems. I don't think.
Right.
A lot of people are looking to science to fix those problems with, some, synthetic whatever. No.
I mean, and I know that things have existed for decades and centuries, but that's the past, and now we know now better. So I believe we have to go on what we know is better now. We can't say, well, we did that in the past, and
to give it and on a more positive twist, we do know more things now.
Exactly.
And therefore, I actually am hopeful that things could be better in the future.
Oh, I think they can. I mean, I've seen even my own property go from sand to insanely productive because of regenerative practices.
It's why you and I get up at 4 a.m. to put some notes together to do a podcast, because we're hopeful that if enough people are doing things, again, it don't take everybody doing it, but if enough people are doing it, you can change the outcome. We just need a lot of people to understand doing that. Our homesteading, we feel like it's important. I feel like a majority of people should be practicing some level of homesteading.
Yeah.
Ethical homesteading.
And I do think that I am hopeful. And that's part of my love of people and love of this earth that we have, is to take care of it. And because I love people, I want to see them happy and thrive and healthy.
Yeah.
And it's hard to be happy and healthy and thrive in an environment that we're destroying. Yeah,
absolutely.
And we know better now. So we can, science has shown that some of these things that we once thought were amazing aren't so great. And then we have better ways that actually, some of it's not new. It's really old ways of doing things that we're learning were pretty decent practices. But we also have new things to help too. Like you were talking about earlier, you have your Berkey to help clean your water.
Right.
Well, that's a new technology. I liked how Bill Mollison use the word reinvestment in one of his quotes. And I linked to the article that he talks about. That was actually somebody was interviewing him. But I just like that word. We're reinvesting in this planet that we're all on.
Why don't you read the quote for us?
What?
He was thinking, read the quote for us.
Oh, well, the quote, it's kind of in the middle of the quote is what I put down, but it said, but permaculture is anti-political. There is no room for politicians or administrators or priests. And there are no laws either. The only ethics we obey are the care of the earth, care of people, and reinvestment in those ends.
I like it.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, we have to think about this investment we're making, for sure, in the people, in the land, in the earth, and what the result of that's going to be. I mean,
right.
Like I said, I wake up every day thinking, I admit it, I think about the future for my grandkids. I just do. I mean, I'm like, I want them to have opportunities. I want them to have, health. I want them to be able to go fishing and eat the fish out of that lake, or, breathe the air without some kind of a, mask on or something that filters it for them. I just, I care about things being good for them. And I think it's going to take a lot of people making some big changes in their life to turn that around. But I wouldn't be getting up and doing this podcast if I didn't think it was possible.
Oh yeah, I think we're seeing it happen. I think a lot of people are starting to do this, and I think that's just great. And I think that we can, just like we've seen pieces of property be regenerated large scale. Even, I mean, we've all watched Jeff Lawton, or in some of his work that he's done, and some of Bill Mollison's work, and but I think we're seeing it happen even on a smaller scale. And I think that our bodies have an amazing ability to heal, and so does the earth.
Yeah.
So I think there's a lot of hope out there. This isn't all is lost, but it is we have to change some of our practices.
Absolutely. And when you say we, I think of my own self. Like I said, I need to dive into some of these things a little bit deeper and do even a bigger part, and play a bigger part in ethical homesteading and following the ethics of permaculture. Whether would you consider yourself somebody who follows permaculture principles or anything like that? Right. I think the ethics work, whether you are a big permaculture person or not. These are just ethics. I mean, these are just good and bad, what's good for the planet, what's good for people, what's, good for the future. It's not, I don't feel like there's a lot of questionable thinking here. I mean, we're not saying anything that's got a big shock value or anything. It's just, take care of what you want there to be for the future, period. And
and as we head into like the new year where people try to make changes, or even the winter where it's easier to make changes and organize, and you're planning
your homestead for next year, you're planning your gardens, you're planning how you're going to do things, take these things into consideration.
Now is the time to learn and maybe make some changes, and small changes, in my opinion, and for me, have always worked better than making massive changes. Just small, steady progress. And slowly over the years and decades, we have made small, steady progress on our own home and homestead. We still have a lot of places we can improve. So this is kind of as much for me as it is for everybody else. I mean, we still have places we can improve.
And you know what? Don't wake up tomorrow with the determination that I'm going to start doing it perfect from here on out, because that will probably wear on you and it won't get done. Take one step at a time. Every little thing you do, it will make a difference. And it's going to be really hard to just say, okay, from now on, I'm doing everything this way, and my life is completely changed. And I'm going to tell you that will probably burn you out and make you not care as much. Because I've done things like that, in the past, and you'll find that you will scale back and adjust, and probably won't do as good as if you would have just took one thing at a time, honestly.
Yeah. Slow and steady wins the race. Is that Aesop's fables, with
I think it's true.
The rabbit
Absolutely. Absolutely.
The tortoise and the hare. There we go.
Tortoise and the hare. There you go.
Yep.
Well, we want you to be healthy. We want to be healthy. We want our grandchildren to be healthy. We want them to have a world they can live in, that they enjoy life and they have good health. And I think this is the answer. I really do. Some people look to science to fix everything, but I think it starts in your yard. To be quite frank, it starts in your kitchen. It starts in your garden. It starts in your livestock pen. It sounds too simple to be true.
Yeah,
but
it really is.
I think simple. If enough people take those actions, that's a world changer right there. So just start with yourself, and don't worry about your neighbor so much as yourself. Get yourself straightened out, and then spread the truth, and make a difference. I think that's all we can do. I think some articles that have some value, or some things we linked to today. I wanted to share the Berkey or Pro One water filter article on why you might want to choose a Pro One or a Berkey. Either way, filter your water. I think it's good. So I shared an article on that. A link to an article on that. I shared an article on permaculture ethics explained. We got into it a little bit, but it goes a lot deeper. This is from Deep Green Permaculture, and it's an article they have on it. It's really good. It's worth the read. Go read it, and it really breaks down what it is, why it's important. These ethics are important, so check that out. You shared this was actually an interview with Bill Mollison, right?
It was an interview with Bill Mollison. So I shared the source of that quote. It was actually a pretty good interview. And
this is a written interview.
Well, it's a transcript
of an interview.
Interview that I think he did on the radio.
Okay.
But I could not find the radio interview.
I glanced at it. It looks really good. Yeah,
it is. It's really good. And, Bill Mollison obviously has since passed away, but he's considered the father of permaculture, basically. So.
Boy, I have gotten some emails for saying that before. Woo.
I know. Oh, sorry. Well, Bill Mollison.
No, he
had a huge impact on some of the philosophy and ideas.
Yeah, well, I would say he's the one that organized it in thought and put it in a book. The practices have been around for thousands of years. They have. He put it into a system in book form and said, here's the package. So, and he is considered the father of permaculture in that way. So
Yeah, he actually kind of says that in the interview that it's been around forever. He just was observing and wrote it down, and yeah.
Anyway, on that note, he's written there's some great books out there. One is Introduction to Permaculture by Bill Mollison. We have the link to that in the show notes, where he just kind of lays out permaculture, talks about the ethics, he talks about the principles, he talks about what permaculture is, basically. But a more detailed book on the ethics and principles is David Holmgren's book called Permaculture Principles and Pathways Beyond Sustainability. I have both of these books, both really good books for just understanding kind of the philosophy of permaculture and the basics of what it is. And just great resources to have. The Introduction to Permaculture is a pretty salty price tag on that book.
Yes, it is.
The other one, David Holmgren's a little bit more affordable. Yeah. If you want to even get the handbook, the bigger book, the Introduction is actually a smaller book. The actual handbook, permaculture, that one's really pricey, actually.
Yeah, that's the one I keep checking out from the library.
Yeah, it's really it costs a lot. So there are some, the other one's a little cheaper. Both great books, both worth having on your shelf, especially if you want to get into the thinking behind permaculture. Right. Really good resources. I think restoration agriculture, when you start getting into the more practical, what does an ethical homestead look like? Exactly. Restoration agriculture is a great book, I think. There's a bunch of great ones, but I think that one is. Now, one I recently bought was one put out by the founders of Verge Permaculture, Rob Avis, his wife, Michelle, and Dakota Cohen, wrote a book called Building Your Permaculture Property, a 5-step process to design and develop land. Now, that sounds like reading the title. I think the title of that book's a little bit misleading, because it when it's talking about the 5 steps, I'm thinking hands-on things, but it's more about the thinking process of the 5-step process. Okay. So I feel like it's more on the philosophy side and the education side than the actual, when I first bought that book, I thought, it's like practical things I'm going to get out here and do on my homestead.
Right.
And it's really a lot less of that, which I think it's a great book. I just think the title kind of throws you off a little bit, what you might expect with that book. So I think it's still a great book, though. And then you put one in also, a book link.
I did. I put Justin Rhodes' book, Rooted, in. I feel like it's not extremely technical with permaculture, but Justin Rhodes definitely is a permaculturist. And I would say that this is a really good, very beginner introduction. Mm-hmm. That's it's very simple and straightforward, and I appreciate that. So I think it's
There's
really,
a place for
also
that.
Could be a really nice coffee table book. It's just beautiful, and so I think that's a great book if you're brand new to this, you're brand new to homesteading, and you're trying to decide, where to start. Mm-hmm. For sure.
Okay. And then as far as products today, we didn't really mention a lot of products. I did mention the Pro One gravity water filters. If you're interested in that, if you have a Berkey and you're wanting to make the switch, I put the link into that. You can go check that out. Like I said, I have a water filtration system. If you have a Berkey, I think they're great. I think the Pro One might be a hair better. That's why I made the switch. But I think, I just put that in there in case anybody's interested in knowing a little bit more about those. So other than that, that's all we got. Good stuff, I think. Like important stuff, maybe not. Sometimes when we talk about homesteading topics, we start thinking about things we can get out there and do in our gardens that are really enjoyable, or things we can do with our animals that are, like really going to feed our family. This is definitely more, like I said, airplane view type stuff. We're looking down, life adjustment things that are going to change the future of our planet. Might seem too big for us to even think about sometimes, but I just think it's the little things. It's a lot of people doing a lot of little things. They're going to change everything for the future of our planet and the future for our grandchildren. So I think it's important, and I think it's something we need to think about. We need to talk about.
We do. We have to talk about it. It's the elephant kind of in the room a little bit.
Yeah. So don't be naughty. Don't get on Santa's naughty list, folks. You better do this right, because he's watching.
No presents for you.
Oh man. You rolled your eyes when I said I was going to put a Christmas twist on it last week, and you're like, okay. Now I'm rolling my eyes after saying it out loud. We appreciate you joining us this week. And until next episode, happy homesteading. God bless.
And grow where you're planted.
Looking around, I finally see I think I need a change. The rat race, I wanna flee. My world I'll rearrange. I'm getting back to the roots of how it's meant to be. Growing gardens, picking fruit, racing livestock, living free. It's a modern homestead. Build a modern homestead. A lot of folks don't understand why I wanna live this way. They've never eaten from their land like we do here every day. Snapping beans like Grandma did, sitting on her front porch. Hunting and fishing like a kid once you've done all of your chores. It's a modern homestead. Build a modern homestead. Country or city, there's a way to make this change. You gotta start today.